There is probably no doubt that you think clowns are scary. Well, there is one clown who is famously known as Pogo the Clown that will haunt your dreams. John Wayne Gacy was a father, a husband, a salesman, businessman, KFC manager, and then later had his own construction company, kidnapped and murdered young men in the 1970s. Let's count down 10 extremely creepy facts about John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown. Number 10. Gacy claimed that he had 4 different personalities and that the violent one was an evil homophobe named Jack Hanley. On December 11, 1978, Robert Piest, who was only 15 years old at the time, informed his mother he would be speaking with a contractor named John about a better employment opportunity. However, Robert never came home and was reported missing later that day. When police requested to question John, who was known to recruit teenage boys for work, Gacy failed to show up, so the police obtained a warrant to search Gacy's home, and to their surprise, police found a receipt that belonged to Robert's drugstore colleague and a high school ring belonging to John CYC, who was also previously reported missing, but found no body as Gacy dumped Robert's body in the Des Plaines River after being called in for questioning. Police then obtained a second search warrant for Gacy's home, where they found human remains behind a door that led to a crawl space. After arresting Gacy, police began pulling up the floorboards and found body after body, discovering a total of 27 bodies. At one point, Gacy told investigators that he might have slept in the same house as a dead body but never had sex with it, although Jack might have. He would often mention someone by the name of Jack Hanley, who apparently killed some of the kids. It dawned on the investigators that Gacy was trying the insanity defense by claiming he had multiple personality disorder. While some psychiatrists believed him, it ultimately didn't work. The suspicion became validated when investigators found a criminal law book among Gacy's possessions with a chapter on the insanity defense which was bookmarked. There was more evidence that Gacy had premeditated his killings and was always in control of his actions. He also had no guilt or remorse, to which he was convicted of 33 counts of homicide. It's creepy to vision Gacy murdering young men, then once caught tried to blame it on his other personality named Jack Hanley. Number 9. Gacy lured his victims straight to his home. Gacy would pick up Caucasian male runaways, prostitutes, or men looking for a job. They were all in their mid-teens to their early 20s, and many from the Chicago Greyhound bus station or off the streets. After meeting with them, he would take them back to his house by either promising them money for sex, offering them a job with his construction company. Typically, he would lure a victim to his home and dupe them into donning handcuffs on the pretext of demonstrating a magic trick. Once they were in handcuffs, he would then tie them up, intoxicate them with alcohol, or knocking them out with chloroform. He would torture them in various ways, sexually abuse them, then murder them. It is creepy thinking about these poor young men who had no idea what they were getting themselves into, just to be a part of a serial killer's fantasy. Number 8. Gacy designed his own clown makeup, including a large painted mouth with sharp corners, which he knew would frighten children. Gacy became aware of a Jolly Joker clown club that regularly performed at fundraising events and parades in addition to voluntarily entertaining hospitalized children. In late 1975, Gacy joined the clown club and created his own character called Pogo the Clown and Patches the Clown, devising his own makeup and costumes. He described Pogo as a happy clown, whereas Patches was more serious. Gacy earned little money for his performances and later said that acting as a clown allowed him to regress into childhood. He performed as both Pogo and Patches at numerous local parties, political functions, charitable events, and children's hospitals. Occasionally, he would let his true persona filter through to the clown, punishing children he didn't like by hurting them, before going back to the pretense, as if clowns weren't scary enough. Number 7. All of Gacy's known victims were young males. All were under the age of 30, but some were still children, the youngest of whom were only 14 years old, to which he buried 27 bodies in the crawl space under his house. He knew exactly where they were. Gacy drew a diagram of his crawl space, marking exactly where he put each boy, almost exact to the T of where all these bodies were. When he was drawing, he started with the first one, where he put a little mark and said that was the first one because the first one he had put concrete over it after he'd buried him. And then from then on, he just had trenches dug by the 2 young men that worked for him. and he would just put them into those trenches. Number 6. Gacy worked in a morgue. When he was in his early 20s, Gacy spent a few months as a mortuary assistant in Las Vegas, where he would move corpses and material from the hospital to the funeral home. As Gacy could not afford lodgings with his pay, he was also allowed to sleep at night in the premises. At night, when everyone left for the day, he would pull out the drawers and examine the bodies, talk to them, and undress them, neatly folding their clothes next to the caskets. And he later admitted that one night, he got into the coffin of a dead teenage boy and fondled the corpse. It's deeply disturbing to think that Gacy had an interest in dead corpses at such a young age. Number 5. Gacy was convicted of 33 counts of murder and sentenced to death. In his last moments, Gacy's final words were "kiss my a" before he was executed by lethal injection in 1994. The injection malfunctioned, and he wasn't pronounced dead for 18 minutes, to which he probably felt more pain than planned, although many believe he had an easier death than his victims. Number 4. Gacy was 29 the first time he committed murder. His victim was 16-year-old Timothy Jack McCoy, who was in the area while on a bus trip layover. The two met at a bus terminal in Chicago, and McCoy was returning home after a Christmas celebration with friends in Michigan. McCoy spent the night at Gacy's house on Gacy's suggestion. McCoy was stabbed to death in early morning of January 1972 in Gacy's home and then buried in the crawl space under the kitchen floor. Number 3. There were a total of 8 unidentified victims. It wasn't until 2011 when investigators reopened the case to identify the 8 victims. Since then, investigators have identified 3 of the victims: 16-year-old James Hakinson, 19-year-old William Bundy, and 20 to 21-year-old Francis Wayne Alexander. And this is thanks to modern technology and the DNA database that investigators were able to identify them. There are still 5 victims of Gacy's who remain unidentified. Their bodies were found buried in his crawl space and are thought to be between the ages of 14 and 30. Their families still do not know what happened to them. Number 2. Some argue that Gacy likely killed more than 33 young men. Gacy was charged with 33 counts of murder, but at one point he told an investigator, 45 sounds like a good number. That means there might be 12 other victims unaccounted for if, of course, Gacy was telling the truth. Gacy did travel a lot due to his contracting work, and investigators think there's no way he didn't commit these kinds of crimes in other states. Plus, there have been witnesses who claim they saw Gacy digging ditches or dragging garbage bags across the yard in other locations, besides his Summerdale Avenue house in Illinois, Chicago. Coming in at number 1. Gacy stashed many of the bodies of his victims in the crawl space under his house. He eventually ran out of space and had to use his garage for storage as well. This was the house he lived in with his second wife, Carol Hoff. At one point, Hoff noticed a strange smell coming from the crawl space, as well as clouds of flies. Gacy blamed a broken sewer pipe. Hoff wasn't the only one to notice it either. Gacy would hold parties and barbecues for the community, and neighbors would comment on the strange odors that came from inside. Gacy just told them it was damp. Thanks for watching. Which fact did you find the creepiest? If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you soon.